So huge numbers of people come out to see and hear this man. And this week, I think a number of us have been taken aback by how involved we ourselves have become. I know I've been enraptured watching the coverage, watching his face, hearing his English and his Spanish. Maggie went down to the Parkway yesterday. She's beaming. Peter's been watching it all week, and people just keep telling me they can't stop. Despite and because of the Pope's efforts to move away from decadence, he has become a spiritual superstar. It's a strange phrase, but it's true. Pope Francis decided to live in humble quarters, not to live in the posh apostolic palace where previous popes resided. In the United States, Francis is being driven around in this cute, modest little Fiat thing. He's got his little car. After speaking to the United States Congress, he declined a formal dining opportunity with senators and representatives and instead ate with people at a homeless shelter down the road. These are simple and important examples of why many of us, absolutely including myself, believe that Pope Francis is quite simply trying to bring the Catholic Church more fully into a church following the teachings and life of Jesus. He is also impelling all people of the world, 7.25 billion, to act as servants of the common good. Let's go back to the book of John, where Jesus instructed Simon Peter that the best way to show his love was to care for and feed his sheep. That means the 7.25 billion people in my reading. Right before that exchange, it's early in the morning, and Jesus stands on the shore looking out on the boat in which the disciples are fishing. He calls out to them, "Hey, have you caught any fish yet?" "No," they answer. They don't know who they're talking to yet. Jesus instructs them, "Well, throw your net over the side of the boat and you'll find some." And they do it. And they end up with so many fish that they can't even haul the whole load overboard into the boat. Then the disciples realize they're talking to Jesus, and they follow him. A few get in the water and swim, some row, tow the fish. When they land ashore, they find a fire of burning coals, grilling fish with some warm bread there. Jesus says, "Bring the fish that you have caught." So Simon Peter climbs back into the boat and drags the full net of large fish to them. And next, Jesus distributes ample fish and bread to the disciples who not long before were struggling and hungry out in the boat. He's helped them catch the fish and eat well, and then Jesus instructs as clearly as one possibly could, "Now I want you to help others. Take care of others." The people. I believe this is the message of Pope Francis. God, Jesus, and countless other people offer us so many blessings. Most days it's hard, if you really try with your gratitude list, to count them all up. And in response, we are required to help others. It's an instruction. Now, there are plenty of folks who are not Christians, let alone Catholics, that may balk at this Christ-centered story and theology. I didn't mention, you might have known, Jesus was back from the dead in this story, so it adds another layer. He was back from the dead in that story. But don't miss the forest by focusing too much on specific trees. I implore you. These are the teachings fundamental to Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Unitarian Universalism, and many wisdom traditions. Human beings do best when we focus on gratitude for all that life and grace brings us. And out of that thankfulness, we're called to help the common good through acts of forgiveness, love, and compassion. Keeping it simple, how can you use these principles today in your life? And how can we use these principles today in our beloved community here in this church? Without a doubt, many of us disagree with the Catholic Church's stance on reproductive justice, the role of women in the church and society, the role of gays, lesbians, transgender people in the church and society. The Pope struck one false note on this visit to the United States this week when he said to the U.S. Catholic bishops that they have been courageous in their handling of the sex abuse scandal. They have not. Maybe he's trying to say it so it will be so. I'm choosing to believe that's hopefully what he's doing. But in far too many cases, the church leaders have been complicit in committing and covering up crimes. It's a fact, and they must all do significantly better. So I have to name that on this weekend of the Pope's visit. So many folks have reservations, aren't happy with all this Pope focus, and I say, and many others have been saying, what better reason might there be to stay in relationship? What kind of world would it be if we only related with those folks with whom we agree? All the married folks, let's have a little conference on how that would work out. How would that go? This Pope provides an opening of great promise. This guy could spend all the time he wants with the big brass of the heads of state and the church leaders around the world, yet he decides to go, today he's in prison in Philly. He goes to prisons and washes the feet of female convicts. In large crowds, he often picks out the frail or the paralyzed or the physically deformed people to give them hugs and to get hugs back. This week, Pope Francis spoke at the White House about how it's all of our duty to work for a better world, thinking of the children who die of hunger or in bombings, immigrants who drown in the search for a better tomorrow, and an environment devastated by human beings' predatory relationship with nature. He has lamented in the past, how can it be that it's not a news item when an elderly homeless person dies, but it is news when the stock market loses some points? Pope Francis, this one is like my mantra, my Pope Francis, he said he prefers a church which is bruised, hurting, and dirty because it has been out in the streets, rather than the church which is unhealthy from being confined and from clinging to its own security. I believe with all my heart that our Unitarian Universalist faith needs an injection of this kind of spirit of the best in humanity. And I have to bookmark here how deeply impressed I am with how he speaks courageously within his context, his reality. He has some very smart, strong bishops and cardinals who must be pushing back massively. Hard to overstate that. The Pope has contagious power for change and good. We'll keep soaking that up this afternoon. We are the priesthood and prophethood of all believers. How are you living out your faith in the context of your life? What barriers are you pushing past? What are your stories of welcoming a stranger, or reaching out to the downtrodden, or the times when you yourself were disoriented and hungry, and somebody got you back on track with a warm meal and a blessing of compassion. Blessings be. Amen.